Hello. So this is episode 2 of the Hello Kitty and Friends Winter Wonderland book that I believe I said was going up in November. Pardon me, I'm so sorry about that. So yeah, this is the Hello Kitty The Winter Wonderland book number 19 in the series. We won't get to read them all because they've gone out of print and I have just found one in a charity shop and the rest in a library. So these are heart little warming stories of Hello Kitty and her friends where things don't work out but they make them work out. So we'll just jump straight right into it and I'll just take the bookmark off. We are on chapter 3. I always try and make sure you guys can see the pictures. Surprise, surprise. That evening, Hello Kitty got dressed up in warm clothing and stood by the door on her crutches. As she waited for Minnie and their parents, eventually they came down the stairs. All bundled up too. Hello Kitty could see Minnie's costume peeking out of her coat, a pink tutu and a white fake fur wrap. She was going as the sugar plum fairy. Hello Kitty smiled. It suited Minnie perfectly. Mama and Papa White told the girls that they were going to drive over to the start of the parade so that Hello Kitty could sit at the organizer's table and watch from there. Perfect. As Hello Kitty hopped outside on her crutches, she took a big deep breath of the crisp winter air. She looked up to see Tammy, Fifi and dear Daniel coming through the front gate. What was going on? They were pulling a green sledge decorated all with lots of ribbons and tinsel presents. I think I know where this is going. Surprise! They all grinned and called out. They had decorated the sledge especially for Hello Kitty. They told her so that she could take part in the parade as well. They were all going to pull her. That was why they had to change their costumes so that they could all be reindeer instead. Hello Kitty looked at what her friends were wearing and saw that instead of angels they were dressed as snow white reindeer with antlers instead of halos. And dear Daniel was all in brown with a red nose. He was the most important reindeer of all, Rudolph. Hello Kitty's eyes widened. They had done all this for her. It was absolutely super. She grinned at her wonderful friends and told them all how wonderful they looked. Fifi and Tammy were perfect dressed up as reindeer, and dear Daniel looked fantastic as Rudolph. She was going to look very out of place in her normal clothes. Oh well. But oh, now she wasn't. Ta-da! Her friends held out a little red costume. Hello Kitty couldn't believe it. Santa suit for her with the softest white fake fur collar, a brown belt and big black boots that would fit her over her cast. Whoa, Hello Kitty couldn't wait to put on everything. Her friends hugged her. All of the whispering and the phone calls hadn't been them leaving her out at all. They had just been doing something nice for her to make sure she could take part. In the parade too, they wanted to keep it a surprise. Hello Kitty grinned at everyone. This was going to be the best parade ever, and all because her friends were the best, the very best in the whole wide world. There wasn't a moment to lose. The parade was starting soon. Hello Kitty wedged herself onto the sledge and dear Daniel and Fifi and Tammy stood in the ropes in front of her. Was she ready? You bet she was. They picked up the ropes and started to pull, stamping and tossing their heads in like a real reindeer. Around them, the streets were full of people who had turned up to watch the parade, as well as others in costumes ready to walk in it. There were snowmen and Santas and angels and elves. There were people dressed up as Christmas trees and Christmas puddings and even presents as well. It was cold but as pretty as a picture, and the excitement was keeping Hello Kitty warm. She looked over to the side where Minnie stood as the sugar plum fairy. Hello Kitty couldn't have felt more Christmassy if she had tried. Hello Kitty and her friends started singing as they pulled the sledge down the streets. As they passed crowds that had come to watch, everyone cheered, and Hello Kitty thought to herself it was the most magical night ever. It was clear and bright, and little stars twinkled in the sky. As the big parade came into town square, a big Christmas tree stretched high into the sky, lights twinkling on it from top to bottom. A stage had been set up next to it, and all the crowds were gathering around as a man on the stage started to speak. He began saying by what a successful evening had been and how it had raised a huge amount of money for charity. They hadn't finished counting everything up yet, but when they had, it was going to be used to make sure that everyone would have a proper Christmas dinner and a present too. The crowd gave a loud cheer, but before he sent everyone on their way, he had to announce the prize for the best costume. This year, it was going to be a group of friends who had gone to lots of trouble so that their friend could take part, and that was really what Christmas was all about. And that group was the Friendship Club. He pointed over to the sledge where dear Daniel, Tammy and Fifi were standing with Hello Kitty behind, and everyone gave a loud cheer. Hello Kitty beamed as her friends climbed up onto the stage to collect their prize of a bright red envelope. They waited till they were back with Hello Kitty and gave it to her to open. She quickly tore it open quickly. Tickets to Winter Wonderland to be used whenever they wanted. Hooray! They were all going to be able to visit the park, Minnie too, because there was one extra ticket. Hello Kitty beamed at her friends. Could they go next week when the cast would be off her leg? Her friends grinned. Of course they could. Hooray to that too. As Friendship Club stood in the light of the Christmas tree, they all agreed it was going to be the best Christmas ever. Chapter 8. Sorry, not Chapter 8. Chapter 4. A Day Out. Hello Kitty bounced excitedly in her seat in the back of the car. It was Christmas Eve, and her leg had been out of her plaster cast for just a couple of days. It was still a bit wobbly, but getting better every day. Now she and Minnie were on their way to meet the rest of the Friendship Club at Winter Wonderland. They were talking about the most exciting thing they would be doing on their visit, going to Santa's grotto to see Santa. Mama White listened in and glanced over her shoulder. There would even be reindeer and people dressed up as elves to show them the way there, she said. Hello Kitty and Minnie looked at each other. Elves, how super. Hello Kitty thought to herself that she would have loved to dress up as an elf and help people when she was older. They had arrived at Winter Wonderland car park at last, and the girls jumped out after Mum had parked the car. It hadn't stopped snowing all week, and everywhere looked very pretty. Looking at the blanket of white on the ground, Hello Kitty was reminded of the ice and sugar on one of Grandma White's Christmas cakes. It even looked like it might snow again at that afternoon, but Hello Kitty and Minnie didn't mind. They loved snow. They hurried towards the entrance with Mama behind. It was great to run now that Hello Kitty didn't have to use her crutches anymore. There was an even enormous Christmas tree beside the entrance, covered in sparkling lights. Super surprise! Dear Daniel, Fifi, and Tammy all jumped out from behind the Christmas tree. Hello Kitty and Minnie both squealed, and Hello Kitty slipped on the snow and fell over. Oh no! Everyone ran to help her up. Sorry, excuse me. They didn't want her to break her leg again. Hello Kitty giggled at her friends' worried faces. She was fine. Mama sorted out the tickets and smiled at them all. They were ready to go inside. There was only one answer to that. Of course, the Friendship Club hurried in through the gate and found themselves in an enormous hall, with walls covered with tinsel and sparkling lights and lots of stalls selling Christmas gifts. They were roasting chestnuts and people handing out hot drinks. The air smelled of gingerbread and fresh pine. Yum. Hello Kitty gazed around. There were people everywhere. Children laughing, parents with buggies, grandparents smiling happily. She grinned at her friends. This really was the perfect way to spend Christmas Eve. Fifi grinned back. What did everyone want to do first? Hello Kitty knew exactly what she wanted to do. She really wanted to go into the gardens and see the reindeer and find Santa's grotto. But luckily, that's what everyone else wanted to do too. Waving goodbye to Mama, they ran through the hall and out into the snowy garden.